Hey guys, so for tonight's video I wanted to talk about my top 10 favorite art supplies of 2018. Let's talk about it.
I'm seeing things that aren't real. I'm seeing things I shouldn't see. I'm dreaming things I've never seen.
You're beginning to think in images, concrete images. Hot, cold, light, dark, food, hunger, pain.
Hey guys, hey internet, it's INKEATER and welcome to the first video of 2019. And while I don't have a time-lapse drawing video tonight, I kind of wanted to talk about my top 10 favorite products or art supplies that I've used in 2018. That if you're an artist or a drawer or you're just curious about other tools that other people use, that's kind of what this video is. It's not necessarily the most expensive and the most fanciest of art supplies, but rather those art supplies that get the job done, no matter what they are. So some of them might be a little bit unconventional, while others you might be like, really? You're using that? And it's like, yeah, if it works, don't, if it's not broken, don't fix it, But getting started with that, most of these supplies are kind of like watercolor / sketchy / ink cartoon drawing stuff, if you were to classify them. So if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely stay tuned to see what art supplies we recommend. So for 2018, I was really into inking and drawing, mainly portraits, and so I was looking to better my tools that I was currently using. So first up is kind of like a I want to draw and I don't care if it's cheap paper or not type situation. So Michaels sells these sketchbooks for $5 a piece, which I think is a complete steal, especially as somebody who actually has some kind of like sick joy out of making my own sketchbooks with my own paper, my own covers. I like that customization aspect to doing things. Granted, as of recently, I've discovered a lot of sketchbooks and bullet journal notebooks from Michaels that range in the $5 range that kind of look like moleskins. They're not. Granted, the paper quality may be a little bit on the thin side, especially if you're not looking for your stuff to bleed over to the next page. So that's kind of like a little downfall on them, but how can you go wrong with $5? I mean, that's just me, especially if you're just trying to get started as an artist and you don't necessarily have the funds to spend. So that would be product number one. Product number two is whiteout. Whiteout has been kind of like my white inking tool for the longest. I've tried to replace it over the years with a Sakura pen, and then I bought this Derwent graphics pen, and while it was amazing in theory, it did have its flaws, and maybe I just got a faulty marker. But then beyond that, I've tried gel pens, which I don't know if it's me and gel pens or the fact that I'm left-handed or that I just got a bad batch of three, because all three don't necessarily work how you would expect, or at least how I would expect. I will show you, because I guess showing is the best way to tell. As you can see, here are two versions I did with the gel pen, and no matter which gel pen I used out of the three sets, I got these scratchy, itchy lines, and I had to go over the ink several times before I could get that very solid color I was looking for. And it was just frustrating in the end, or at least that's just me. So I went back to my whiteout pen. Granted, it smells, but it gets the job done. So if you're an artist and you're looking to create like those little white sections inside, or those little white highlights inside a lot of your drawings, I would suggest just a whiteout gel pen. You can find these at the dollar store, and as far as I'm concerned, it just gets the job done. So that was product number two. Product number three would have to be water brushes. So sometime over the last 2 years, I kind of converted into water brushes. Granted, while I do love a good brush, water brushes have just been my jam as of recently, especially since I'm on the go. It's easy to just pack one of these brushes along with a watercolor palette and just go and have the ability to draw wherever I want. And I kind of like the freedom of not having to carry a water container, but that's just me. Beyond that, there is, as you can see, this one's a different color. Granted, I will say, if you're going to purchase a watercolor brush pen, avoid the Jane Davenport's scrapbooking brush section in Michaels. Not a fan of these water brushes. I will be coming out with a blog post later on this month, doing a review about them and what I liked, what I didn't like. In a nutshell, they suck up water and they leak things, and you wouldn't expect that. But I don't feel that they're the same quality or on par with Pentel, which you would never guess that these were all bought around the same time period. This one looks better for wear than the other two. I don't know if you guys can tell. But yeah, as you can see, this water brush has a pigment inside, and that would be my number my fourth item, which is Blick's Liquid Watercolor. This bottle runs about like $3, $4, and if you're somebody who's on the go and you're looking for something that's a little bit more portable, you can fill up a brush pen and just fill the brush with that particular ink and kind of sketch and fill in where you want. This has kind of been a fun experiment. I may venture into other colors. Granted, if you don't already notice, I've kind of been limiting my colors and not being as colorful, but just leaving like one color, or if not, it's black and white. I'm just a fan of the classiness of black and white as of recently, so I guess you could say I'm going through my black and white phase instead of my color phase, which I went through a long time ago, where I tried to put every single color down on the palette. But yeah, beyond that item, I would say the next one is just brush pens in general. So this brush pen is just an art liner that I got in the scrapbooking section. You can see it's got a very fine point. And I fell in love with this, but I was looking for something a little bit better. I was already a fan of Pentel's watercolor brush, and I had seen a lot of other artists on Instagram and on YouTube, like Nata Soup, Becca Hilburn. One of my girlfriends, who does art, she uses this Pentel brush. Let's see if we can get it. And I believe I got the large, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm looking at the fact that I really am interested in buying an extra fine one of these. And the reason I love this brush is, like I said, being somebody who's on the go and trying to fit all the things into one case. I'll show you my case. It's a handmade case. Basically, I converted a VHS tape case into a art supply case. And so for me, it's very important that everything fits in one case, which I'm absolutely loving in that sense. So I guess 2018 was the year of condensing down the art supplies to fit in a traveling type situation. So beyond the water brushes and the brush pens, there are alcohol-based markers. So I haven't invested any money into the land of Copics, because I recently heard that Blick's markers have started to come in with refills. So I was trying to get a test or a feel for whether or not I was interested in in alcohol-based markers, because I don't necessarily traditionally paint with them. I'm more of I like to add a little bit of color for highlight, that's about it, or just add a little bit of splotch of color, or make the whole background a certain color. So while I love watercolor brushes, it kind of makes the paper buckle in a little bit of a way. So I was interested and intrigued by these alcohol-based markers. Granted, these are the Artist Loft set. I have a few more over there, like a canary and then a brown. But essentially, so these have been kind of like my go-to fun little splash of color that I've added to my sketchbook as of recently. Is it something that I want to entertain in the future? I don't know yet. They're really expensive. Granted, Blick's brushes have me kind of intrigued, so I might venture in and buy one just to see what the color is like. But I do like how they lay on. I'm just not a fan how they dry out, especially with, I want to say the Artist Loft. or rather just the markers in general, because sometimes you don't necessarily know when you go in how many people have played with that marker and is it going to last me or not, or am I going to buy a dud? That's happened to me quite a few times, so I'm kind of weary about the alcohol-based markers, especially when they have them open on the rack to where anybody can try them instead of being sealed in some kind of manner. But that's just me. Beyond the alcohol-based markers, I've been a huge fan of watercolor cases. So like I mentioned previously, I'm really huge fan of basically condensing everything down into this one case, especially since I'm on the go, I'm at a Comic-Con, I'm hanging out with friends. I want the ability to still draw while I'm out and about, especially if I see something really freaking cool, which I don't know if that happens to you guys or not, but it happens to me quite frequently, and I kind of can't fight the urge. Granted, I will say that drawing on my phone has been awesome, but it's not the same thing as holding a piece of paper. And while I do like sketching with Procreate, it's not the same thing as drawing on a piece of paper. Maybe that's just me. So I got this watercolor case from one of my friends who went to Japan. It is something I wasn't sure I was going to like or not, so I wanted to get the cheap of the cheap before I invested in something really awesome. But on the inside is some Reeves watercolors that I've been recently playing with. I really like the pigments of them. I was also trying Langnickel and Castle and Langnickel. I'll put the name somewhere here if I remember. But those colors were kind of like very gothic looking, and granted, while I was drawing Game of Thrones, it actually came in handy because it kind of fit the mold and the motif, but it was not my thing. And it's kind of funny because I like the Langnickel 36 watercolor set that comes in like a plastic case, and I like how the colors look, and I like how they layer, and it's awesome. But then that 12 color set just sucks. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but yeah. So Reeves has kind of been my jam as of recently. Beyond this guy, the other two items are kind of like out of the way, but essentially it's a wireless printer and a Cricut Explore Air that I recently purchased, which is going to up the ante in terms of like my art store, my Etsy store, my creativity. It's two items that I've been literally saving up all year to obtain, and I'm kind of stoked about them, especially going into this new year with the ability to sit there and create stickers, which I miss making freaking stickers. This is kind of like the one that I've shown off a little bit, which is the one of Stan Lee, and I can't wait to start making stickers again because it was something that I really missed doing this past Comic-Con season. So that's gonna be kind of like a game changer, especially in terms of the Artist Alley scene, Comic-Cons, Etsy store, and it's all because of you guys, and I can't thank you enough. Especially if you just watch the art or the creations, or you've supported me via my Etsy store, or you've just shared my art, tweeted my art, favorited my art in any way, shape, or form. I just want to say thank you for being so awesome. So these are my top 10 art products or art supplies for anybody who's into inking, drawing, or just creating in general, and who aren't looking to spend an arm and a leg. Granted, some people that are really, really high up in the fancy art community might cringe at me, but you know what? Honestly, a supply is a supply, and it doesn't matter what it is as long as you create. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys are doing awesome, but let me know down in the comments below, what are your favorite art supplies from 2018? Anyway, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys are doing awesome. Bye!
Whatever it is that you believe you're seeing, it's not real.
Seeing things before they happen. Things are not always what they seem in this place. So you can't take anything for granted.